Hey, welcome to the Go-To Physio podcast. This is episode 67 or season 4, episode 17, all about how to improve your therapist's drop-off rates or cancelled, did not rebook rates. Now, over the past few episodes, we've talked a lot about the Go-To Clinic Head Physio dashboard, which is a key set of metrics that tracks your patient's journey and ultimately takes the emotion out of the decision making to show you how good your clinic is at taking a patient when they come in, extract what they want to achieve and actually going and delivering that. And the metrics take the emotion out of the decision making. The metrics are the output telling you what happened and what key activities happened or did not happen in your business. Now, over the past few episodes, we covered IA rebook percentages, how to improve your packages of conversions. Now we're going down to your drop-off percentage. So the key thing with the drop-off percentage or your cancel did not rebooks is what exactly is this number. So how I track it in my own clinic and we track it in the Go-To Clinic Head Physio dashboard is your drop-offs are essentially a combination of your patients who cancelled and did not rebook plus the patients who didn't attend the appointments. So with those two, you're going to add those two numbers up and then you're ultimately going to add in the number of total appointments your therapist saw for that week, and then you're ultimately going to divide your cancelled, did not rebook and did not attend by the total potential appointment numbers. Okay, so let's say, for example, let's keep the metrics really simple. So let's say, for example, my therapist saw 10 patients this week, hypothetically. They had 1 cancelled, did not rebook, and they had 1 did not attend. Okay, so the total potential appointments that they could have seen was 12. So we're going to add up the 1 cancelled, did not rebook, the 1 did not attend, that's 2. Okay, and we're going to divide that by 12. Okay, and then that number, put me on the spot here, okay, is going to give you your cancelled, did not rebook rate percentage. So from our clinical experience of my own clinic, and without trying to sound cocky or anything like that, my clinicians, they're very, very good clinicians now at hitting a lot of these standards, and working with a lot of other very good clinics and clinicians, we found that the sweet spot, a fair number for drop-off percentage, sits around 8%. Okay, again, that may vary a little bit with your own clinic, but we feel within our own clinic and other clinics we've mentored and coached that 8% is a fair number. Okay? Now again, you could argue that it should be less than that, whatever, okay? But that's the metric we have, okay? So that's the metric we strive to improve. So we want that to be less than 8% essentially. Now, why is this such an important number? The other thing that I want to talk about before I get into that is don't forget that I talked in the last couple of episodes, and especially around how to improve your package conversions, that if you get patients to commit to the treatment plan and buy a package of care, it really does make a big difference to this drop-off percentage. So within this episode, what I'm really talking about here is patients that haven't gone and committed to a package of care and they're paying as you go. That's essentially the terminology we would use. So why are these numbers so important? So again, from a few episodes ago where I showed you how to double your profit without any new patients using the Head Physio dashboard, we've got that scenario here where Clinic A has 100 patients, Clinic B has 100 patients. We've already spoke about and we've already spoke about improving our IA rebook percentage, and we'll come to our patient visit average very, very shortly. So today we're looking at the drop-off percentage. So the drop-off percentage, you can see it's one of the key levers that we can pull, that if we get this down from 15% in this scenario to 8%, and we've already improved our IA rebook from 70 to 90%, and we get our patient visit average from 3 to 6, that essentially that's a 2.3x growth, okay, versus Clinic A. So this is very, very important stuff, not only to your profits and to the sustainable growth of your business, but also it means this cancellation did not rebook rate means that your patients have actually stayed the course and got the results they wanted. Okay, and I think that's really important to understand. Sometimes when we look at these numbers, you can always become about business and you forget, keep the main thing, which is this number actually represents the number of patients that have actually gone through, completed their treatment, and hopefully given us reviews and referrals, okay? So it's a number along the customer journey or the patient journey. And this number, as I said, there's a few key things that we want to get right. So as always with our head physio dashboard, which is this dashboard, which is the combination of our IA Rebook, or package conversions, or drop-offs, or patient visit average, and our utilization, there's going to be some key things that are happening or not happening that's ultimately resulting in these outputs, which is these numbers. So what we're interested in changing is, if we want to change this drop-off percentage, we need to change the inputs. And that's where we use our 6 stages of the Go-To Clinic patient journey to understand where's the problem, where's the patient dropping off, and at what stage was that patient when they dropped off, because very often the stage before that, they didn't truly go through that stage. So if we want to improve our cancellation drop-off, that number alongside our patient visit average, you're going to start to see that now with stages 4 to 6, okay? So within the IA Rebook percentage and with our how to improve our packages, which we've spoken about in the previous episodes, those 2 metrics are going to really be focusing on stages 1 to 3 of the patient journey. Now, the drop-off percentage and the patient visit average usually then is a problem, assuming that we've cleared up stage 1 to 3, and that's a big if, okay, that we're assuming that, then usually the drop-off in the PVA is going to be fixed from stage 4 on, okay? So let's remind ourselves what the 6 stages are. Stage 1, the patient has to buy into the treatment plan. Now, I've said it's a big if, okay, and I'm assuming here that they have bought into the treatment plan, okay, because very often what you're going to see, especially if the patient visit average is about 3 and the patient's dropping off after 2 or 3 sessions, is they never actually got past stage 1, okay? They came for a couple of sessions, they weren't clear on the problem solution, how many sessions it's going to take, and they didn't trust the therapist, and ultimately they then didn't receive stage 2, which is they didn't feel the real value of the sessions or consistent progress between sessions, which is stage 2 and 3, and so they ultimately drop off. So if your therapist is sitting around a patient visit average of 3, I would be highly skeptical they've passed stage 1. And again, go back to the previous episodes of how to audit your therapist. You'll be able to see that very quickly using the head physio systems. Take one look at the notes and we can very see clearly where the problems are, okay? So please now, and I can't emphasize this enough, I'm assuming that you have passed stage 1, 2 and 3, that the patient is generally bought into this. And why this is so powerful now is we get to stage 4, okay? And stage 4 sets the foundation for improving a patient visit average. And again, remember, I'm talking about patients who haven't bought packages of care here, which is the most challenging patients to keep progressing, okay? So by hitting stage 4, what that means is your therapist has extracted how the patient defines value, and we've hit the first 3 patient value outcomes within the first 3 sessions. Now, why is that really important? That's important because what we've got now by passing stage 4 is momentum. Your patient has seen the value, they've felt the value in daily life, and they're making progress. So logically, they are making progress, they know there's more progress to be made, so why wouldn't they continue to make progress? Okay? If you've passed stage 1, 2 and 3, but the patient hasn't hit the first 3 milestones in the first 3 sessions, that's when self-doubt kicks in for patients, from my experience. That's when they start questioning you as a therapist, or your therapists, whether the time and money spent here now is actually worth the effort and if it's going to deliver the value. Or they might start with the self-trust of, actually, will I be able to do this? And again, how many times do you hear a patient ring up and cancel and say, I haven't had a chance to do my exercises? What objection that is they don't trust that they're going to get the value of the session without doing their exercise. Okay, so the time and money objection is coming in there. So that's where the rehab exercises from stage 3 need to fit into the patient's daily life so they can feel a difference throughout the week. Okay, so stage 4, they've hit the first 3 patient value outcomes. Now, if they've done everything up to stage 3 good, what that is a problem ultimately then is a couple of things. It's either going to be a clinical problem where your therapist isn't sure on what to do in order to achieve the outcome of the patient. Because remember, with the patient value outcome culture, the outcome is the outcome, okay? we then need to understand what's the clinical reason and skills that we need to achieve the outcome, and what's the techniques we use to achieve the skills to achieve the outcome. So we can audit the technique and the rehab exercises that's prescribed in alignment. Is it or is it not in alignment to the patient value outcomes? And very often what you're going to find at this stage, if it's a stage 4 problem, is the therapist's hands-on treatment or rehab, it's more focusing on either the symptoms, but there's no dynamic correspondence to the patient value outcome in the real world. So the patient then essentially is not feeling the difference throughout the week, and ultimately they're not achieving the first 3 milestones. Now that could be the first problem, okay? The big thing there then is that the therapist needs to change strategy, and that's the value of having these outcomes, is it allows us to see if the patient's on track to hit their outcomes within 3 sessions. And after the second session, if they're not hitting these 3 outcomes or they're slow, then that's the alarm system in the Go-To clinic that says this patient is at a high risk of dropping off. So now we've got an alarm system. If you've got a high willingness therapist, which I talked about in the previous episodes of how to create self-managing therapists, that therapist should be alerted to go, this patient is off track. I need to change my treatment strategy. And the beauty of the outcome-based approach is the therapist can keep their treatment autonomy. Where I'm not telling therapists you have to treat exactly like me, but what I am saying is you have to hit that outcome. Okay, and if you can't hit the outcome, then the Go-To Clinic Hub has all of the clinical reasoning and has all of the assessments and all of the hands-on techniques and all of the rehab techniques you need specifically to that patient value outcome in private practice. So there's no reason why they shouldn't use that hub then in order to do that. Or if they need more support, they've got our difficult patients forum in the Go-To Therapist Mentorship. So we've got that resource for our therapists. You need a resource like that, obviously, for your therapist if you're choosing not to use us. Okay? So there's no reason for the therapist to get to this point where the patient hasn't hit the first 3 milestones without asking for help or going and changing their strategy. So if we can get that right, then the patient usually hits those first 3 milestones. The other issue here that I see, and this ties in then to step 5, which I'm going to introduce step 5, is let's assume that they've hit their first 3 milestones in their journey towards their definition of success. Is now at this stage, we need the patient to keep progressing even when the pain eases. And what happens here clinically is the therapist doesn't know where to go next. They don't know how to bridge the gap from low to high level rehab. They're not clear on what the next steps are for the patient. So they say something stupid along the lines of, go and give that a go, give me a ring, see how it goes. Okay? But again, your patient value outcome culture saves you with this, because a patient shouldn't be discharged unless they've achieved the outcomes. So have you got undeniable proof that that patient is giving you permission to tick off the outcomes? So this outcome based does the heavy lifting for you as a clinic owner, okay? It holds the therapist accountable to themselves, to the patient, and to the clinic. So at this stage now, usually what the issue is there's no clear next step. We break down in our follow-up mastery. So we've got our initial assessment mastery in the therapist mentorship now. That takes you through stages 1 to 3, the key inputs there. Stage 4, 5, and 6 is follow-up mastery. In the follow-up mastery, I talk about breaking down your session, your follow-up session, into 3 key sections. The first 5 minutes, the main 20-minute block, and the last 5 minutes if it's a 30-minute session. In the last 5 minutes of that block, we need to recap. Here's where we're at. Here's where we're going next. This is your plan for this week to help navigate the week ahead. This is what you're doing when you're doing it, all tied in to their lifestyle. And then this is the key bit. Here's what we're working on next week. So they can see the progress they've made with the treatment plan. They can see what they're working on this week to tick that off next week. And then they can see the next milestone that they're getting next week that has moved them one step closer to the finish line, to the definition of success. And that's the key thing that doesn't happen in the follow-up sessions from my experience of auditing our own therapists and working with a lot of clinic owners. Okay, so we need to have a framework for follow-up sessions to tell the patient, here's exactly what's going to happen next week. So it's a priority for them and they can see the value, but most importantly, they can see the progress that's been made and that there's more progress to be had. Okay, and then the final step then is actually exposing our patients to worst case scenarios. And again, if you have therapists that are low will, a lot of them won't want to do this. A lot of therapists that might be high will, they don't know how to do this. Okay, but this is critical that we build resilience for patients. We spend time talking about this on Facebook and this, we should be building resilience and empowering our patients. How many therapists, hand on heart, expose patients to these scenarios? Put them in positions where they're fearful and give them an opportunity to come out the other side of it. Put them into the worst case scenario positions, prepare them for the worst cases. And actually, on the other side of that fear is where the magic happens. It's where the reviews and the referrals happen, because they feel differently when they conquer that fear. And that's where then they leave discharged, confident and empowered. Okay, so do they achieve their definition of success and move with thoughtless, fearless movement at that stage, as Louis Gifford said? Because that's what thoughtless, fearless movement is moving with confidence. Okay, put them into the worst case scenarios, anything that they're fearful of, help them desensitize to those, come out the other side of it, and let them be discharged, moving with that thoughtless, fearless movement. Okay, so again, at that stage, the pain has gone from stage 5, and they understand, though, that there's more progress to be made. How are you now able to do this? No, I haven't been able to do that yet. Right, that's what we're working on this week. Okay, because that's an outcome you told me in the first session you wanted to achieve. Just because the pain's gone doesn't mean we've achieved that yet. Okay, you've told me you haven't achieved that, so that the outcomes do the heavy lifting. Okay, so you can see, if you're on YouTube or whatever watching this, that on the right hand side of our storyboard, or V, our right hand side is all outcomes. We've ticked those, but the patient can see that there's more outcomes to be had, there's more progress to be made, and the therapist is super clear on where to go next with the patient as well. All they need to do is achieve that outcome. And guess what? My Go-To Clinic Hub that I've paid a lot of money, invested a lot of money for my own clinic, it's designed for patient value outcomes. Here's the outcome, here's the clinical reasoning, here's the anatomy, the biomechanics, the skills they need, the pain science, all of that's there. Here's the assessment, here's the hands-on technique, here's the re-op techniques. So once the therapist knows the outcome that they're looking at, there's no reason why they can't achieve that. Okay, and again, the key thing here is we can keep the treatment autonomy for your therapist once they achieve the outcome. Okay? But if they don't, then you have the resources there to help actually achieve that. Okay, so we have that instant snapshot of where the patient is. So you can see for the drop-off percentage, that is really going to be a stage 4, 5 or 6 problem, assuming that stage 1 has been done really well. So if your therapist is sitting at a stage PVA of around 3, I would be skeptical that they've actually passed stage 1, okay, that there's been a clear plan set out. And a lot of these symptoms with the drop-off percentages and dropping off at that session 2, 3, even 4, 6 is because of something that didn't happen in that initial assessment. So please go back and re-listen to our how to improve your initial assessment rebook rate as well, because there's probably stuff in there that you need to fix as well with that patient. Okay, so they're the key actions to improve it. Our cancel, did not rebook and drop offs, okay, they're combined, they add them to the total potential. We then get a percentage of our cancel, did not rebook rates. They're important because ultimately they're the patients that don't complete the treatment plan, but they're also the potential that we've already got these patients through the system, that every session that we keep that patient progressing, usually if you've broke even already, it's going straight to the bottom line. So as we saw, a patient visit average of 3 going to 6 and a cancel did not rebook rate of going from 15% to 8%, along with an IA rebook going from 70 to 90, you 2.3x your growth. Okay, now the big thing here with that and growth based on those clinical scenarios that I showed you, the reality is the drop-off rate for a lot of clinics, it's much, much higher than 15%. Okay, I kept this quite realistic here, okay, just to show you some basic standards. If you actually calculate your drop-off rate, honestly, it could be scary, okay, because I've seen a lot of clinics, I've worked with a lot of clinics, that it's a lot higher than that, okay? So your potential for growth, it's even more, but also, the sad thing about it is there's patients come in to your clinic for help and they haven't got that help, okay? They're still in pain. Now, the last thing I want to say is that when you ring up some of these cancel, did not rebooks, okay? Again, a lot of people don't like conflict. They're not going to say, actually, I haven't felt any progress. The exercises aren't working. I don't trust that you can help me. I'm not rebooking. They're going to say, oh, I'm feeling loads better, thanks. I don't need another appointment. Okay, and that's where the patient value outcomes become important, because then we can see undeniable proof and you can actually audit your therapist's treatment. Is that aligned with the patient value outcomes? Okay, so if you want some help with this, the Go-To Clinic Mastermind is a program for multi-therapist clinic owners. We'll help train your team. We'll do all the heavy lifting in terms of your team. They'll have access to our Go-To Clinic Hub, which is patient value outcomes specific. Okay, they'll have access to our difficult patients forums. We'll help you put all the systems and processes in place, give you all the cheat sheets. It's very, very easy to install. Okay, and we'll help you build a clinic that's self-managed, and ultimately you have freedom to work on the business. If you're not interested in the business coach, you just want your therapist trained in all of this and access to our Go-To Clinic Hub for your team, then our Train My Clinician pathway is for you. Okay, that's where we'll take your head physio numbers and we'll work with your therapist to transform those. They'll have all the knowledge and tools they need for that. If you don't know your head physio numbers, we've got cheat sheets. We'll help you extract them. It's actually very, very easy when you have our cheat sheets. If you're a solo clinic owner, we've got help for you also in our Go-To Clinic mentorship program that's specific for solo clinic owners. You'll be in a community with solo clinic owners and they've got different problems to multi-therapist clinic owners. Okay, so you'll be in the right community there. Then you can get some help there with a Go-To Clinic mentorship program. Or if you're a private practice therapist and you work for someone else, you're driven, you understand that the language of high performance is numbers, you want to improve your numbers because you want to get on that road to clinical excellence, then the Go-To Therapist mentorship would be a good opportunity for you where you can access our clinical system without all of the business support. So that's it for me this week. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to finish off the Go-To Clinic Head Physio dashboards. We'll talk a lot more about the other numbers and how to improve them. But as I said, if you can improve your IA rebook percentage, you can get the plans of care to patients to buy packages ethically. That's going to be probably the number one thing that's going to reduce your cancel did not rebook rate. And then all of the stuff we covered today, making sure your therapists are doing that will have a big, big impact on that. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for listening. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you'd like a free copy of my Head Physio Systems 6-step checklist that I use to personally audit my own therapists to make sure that they can keep patients progressing even when the pain is eased so that we can ethically increase our patient numbers, our revenues and referrals, head over to www.thegotophysio.com/checklist and I'll get that sent straight over to you. That's it for this week. I'll see you in next week's show.